All right, you checking in with Mike Williams from the LA Chargers, and you're tuning in to Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Wolkenstein here with you from the LA Network. This is your first time tuning in the show. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein, as I'm looking at my calendar today, does not read July 31st. It does not read September 5th. And that just pisses me off.
Not even June.
We got OTAs that started earlier this week for the Chargers. Whatever it is that we can to try to get us back in the mode of football. But it still feels like training camp, preseason game one, Hall of Fame week. It still feels like it's eons away. And not knocking other sports, and I said this during the live show last week, but I hate this time of the year. Woof.
Yeah, I did too. It's not even June. We're just crawling our way through. This is kind of like that calm before the storm, or before the two storms, really. But exciting show today, Jake. Looking forward to getting this one going. How are you?
I'm doing good. As Dan mentioned, today's show is going to be interesting because we kind of tailored this. Originally, we were going to go with kind of a concept as far as, okay, who's going to be the breakout candidates of 2025? And honestly, much like this list will be, it is very subjective. You could put whoever you want to in this list, but we wanted to change it because there's going to be some players for the Chargers that, whether they're players that were drafted last year that were redshirted, or players that are going to be in elevated roles, or if we're talking about players that are joining the team as free agents this year, kind of casts a little bit of a wider net. So instead of the breakout title, we're going to give this 2025 impact players. Now, there still is criteria for this because obviously if you say 2025 impact players, everybody could say, okay, well, obviously that's Justin Herbert. Obviously that's Derwin James. Obviously that's Rashawn Slater. Obviously that's Khalil Mack. And we get that. And that's, again, low-hanging fruit. So for those reasons, we're going to just take them off this list. We know how big of an impact those four players are obviously going to mean to the team's success moving forward. But the criteria for this is, like I had mentioned before, either players that are going to be in an elevated role, second-year players going into a possible breakout year for their tenure being in the Chargers, if they redshirted last year, if they came in as a rookie last year, or if this is their first or second year as a veteran. So it's kind of a wide net as it relates to this list. And this will be an exciting one to get into, Dan.
Yeah, and I think what's important to remember is some of these might be a little surprising. Some of them might not be. Some of them might be a little unsung. Some of them might be a little obvious. But all of them, I believe, are in the category of critical to the ultimate success ceiling of this Chargers team. And so if one or some of these guys don't make big impacts to this team in 2025, the team might be in trouble. Now, the team has great depth, which has helped this team immensely, especially last year. But some of these guys are going to be relied upon. And so, Jake, shall we get into it?
Let's start it, Dan.
All right. Well, I think probably the one that people are maybe talking about the most as needing to step up with the absence of Joey Bosa, with the absence of Morgan Fox, now becoming a third-year player alongside of Khalil Mack. They're bringing Kyle Kennard, but I think there's a lot on the table to be eaten by Tuli Tuipulotu. And is this his time to shine? Do they need him to shine? What will they provide? What will he provide this team in terms of impact and finishing plays that maybe he's left some to be desired in years past? Jake, let's talk about Tuli.
Yeah, for Tuli, he's kind of the outlier as it relates to this list because he's going into year 3. But in terms of his elevated role for this team, stepping up to be the starter across from Khalil Mack now that the Joey Bosa era is done with the Los Angeles Chargers, there's big expectations and big shoes for Tuli to fill. Now, the pass rush element of Tuli's game has been well documented. We know what he's done in that department for the last 2 seasons. And again, that was as a rotational player. But what he was able to put on tape as a pass rusher was fantastic. I think that's only going to go up from here. But the big question for him, Dan, is how's he going to set the edge in the running game? His rookie year, he had great numbers against the run. Again, limited snaps, not starter snaps. But year two, it took a little bit of a dip. 7 games he had plus grades against the run. But you go back and you look at those games against the teams that really had a high strategy in running the ball against the Chargers, and all 4 of these games were ones that the Chargers went 0-4 in. Baltimore, Tampa Bay, Arizona, Pittsburgh, all of those games. I mean, obviously, collectively, the Chargers as a unit in those games were bad against the run, but Tuli's score is definitely not what you want to see. So how is he going to answer the call across from Khalil Mack to step into the shoes of Joey Bosa, who, when he was healthy, was one of the best edge setters in the league in terms of playing against the run? So it's big expectations for Tuli going into year 3 and coming into his full-time starting role.
Yeah, and again, that was a big asterisk for Joey Bosa when healthy. You already see he's now unhealthy again with the Bills. Unfortunate. This Chargers team, I think, needs to see consistency from that position. And to your point, Jake, the numbers kind of check out too. His rookie year, Tuli Tuipulotu had an 88.4 run defense grade. 2024, that number dropped down to 65.3. And his snaps in 2024 were actually less than in 2023. And so while meaningful, it's going to have to be also impactful. And I think a way to do that is going to be to start finishing some of these pressures, finishing some of these tackles. His missed tackle percentages aren't good his first few years. Now, they're not terrible, but they're not great. And so you see Tuli win a ton with strength and with effort. But I think you're going to want to see him finish with effort and with technique. That's going to help this Chargers team elevate. And technique is important when you've got run defense to worry about. And so this Chargers team, they bulked up the interior, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But the edge room, Bud Dupree, Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu, Kyle Kennard, is that enough? And depending on what the special teams outlook looks like for Tuli Tuipulotu, what will that mean for him with snaps? Will they take away special teams to help maybe improve his on-the-field activity for the edge position? I'm not sure. But if Tuli Tuipulotu goes from 8-sack, 9-sack season like he's had the back-to-back seasons the last 2 years, what if it's 12, 13? This Chargers team is in a whole different place. And those are Joey Bosa numbers that we all thought about. And that's Joey Bosa healthy numbers. So, yeah, I think Tuli Tuipulotu is critical. And you know how important the defense is? Jesse Minter. You know how important it is? Jim Harbaugh. And just the history of how they both play.
Jesse Minter loves him some Tuli.
Yeah. So, no, good one to start.
Next on the list, Dan.
Next on the list is a guy that I was incredibly high on last year. And I'll take the L, I guess. I was wrong. He wasn't as impactful as I was expecting. Now, he was hurt. He was kind of behind the 8 ball, but like net, he did not impact this team the way I thought.
Let's give you a fair shake, Dan. Let's give a full season under the belt before you can officially take the L. Maybe you got half a L for saying what it would be.
But Junior Colson has all of the traits, all of the intangibles, but also all of the, I don't want to say pressure, but opportunity to create a massive impact for this Chargers team alongside Deion Henley. We saw the glow up from Deion Henley last year. But like in my eyes, some of the criteria for some of these players are folks who have an opportunity to provide meaningful impact and also meaningful improvement year over year to this Chargers team. And Junior Colson has all of the opportunity. It's his defense that he ran all through college. It's his defensive coordinator. It's his head coach he had through college. He's got another running mate, Dan Henley, who is a stud in the making. He's got all the athletic traits. He could talk this defense inside and out. What he doesn't have is experience playing at the NFL level with the NFL speed and a healthy offseason. Now he will. But this Chargers team with 2 stud linebackers and a Jesse Minter defense will feed families. And Junior Colson It's such a fun story. I know he was talked about a ton last year when he was a rookie, but go look at his story of coming up, growing up, getting into football, and what he's kind of come from, and you can't help but root for him. And so I think Junior Colson has a lot to bring to this Chargers team, and I think he can fulfill all of those hopes.
Yeah, I think, and you heard it in recent interviews with linebacker coach Navarro Bowman about his expectations for Junior Colson heading into year two. They're big, and as you mentioned, when you pair a guy like Junior Colson who knows this Jesse Minter defense from the inside out and could honestly probably be just sitting on the sidelines right now, giving the rest of the rookies what they need to know about this defense, even considering the limited amount of time that he played in it last year. The amount of knowledge that he comes in. I still remember even Daniel Jeremiah echoed some of the same comments that we were saying, Dan, in terms of the potential immediate impact that he can make, that he was going to be telling some of the veteran free agents that were coming into there, this is what it's about as a rookie. Now, unfortunately, he battled health concerns all throughout the offseason leading up to the year, just was not able to get the adequate playing time necessary, was not able to ramp up to the speed of the game as quickly as we probably would have wanted him to. And so your linebacker pairing was Deion Henley and Denzel Perriman, which for the most part did a pretty good job. Were very, very good against the run. We saw what the impact was when Denzel Perriman was not in the game for a stretch last year. And that was big when it came to defending opposing running backs. But if Junior Colson is able to come into this, Dan, with the football IQ that he has, with his ability and awareness and coverage, and what he can do in sniffing out the run, the potential pairing that you have, as you mentioned, between Deion Henley and Junior Colson, that's going to solidify the middle of that field in a big, big way.
Yeah, and you think about like what he could bring, right? Like dictate terms on your side, like let the defense kind of shoot their shot before the offense has a chance to get there. And I talk about the intangibles. Like this kid is incredibly smart, fast twitch. Like he understands that he could shoot things in a hurry. The issue has been, is he healthy and is he up to speed with NFL style? I think he will be, and I'm pretty bullish on him. The next one, Jake, I think is one that maybe people take for granted a little bit, but still, and this might go into the obvious category. We all know about Rashawn Slater and the Brinks truck that's coming for him. And I think everyone is very high on Joe Alt in terms of like the possible ceiling for him. But for this Chargers team to get to where they want to go, I think Joe Alt clearly can improve. He's not perfect. He has all of the things. He has a perfect mold to start with, I would say. But he can still be molded. And you talk about him with a guy like Mekhi Becton, which we'll talk about in a second. I think impactful, improved players for 2025. I don't see why Joe Alt wouldn't be on the list if we're just using that criteria. First or second year players, guys who are important to the Chargers team's success, protecting the franchise, generating wins, blocking for the running backs that this Chargers team now has. I mean, there's a lot on this guy's plate, and he proved to be as advertised as a rookie. But I will be shocked, and I full on expect that Joe Alt will have a much better 2025 season that he did in 2024. He's that good of a player.
And I fully agree with that. And I think when you see the steps that he already made in his rookie year, may not be where people were hoping that he was going to get to, but still, as a rookie, especially towards the tail end of last year in his production, when you really take a deep dive into it, he was one of the better right tackles in the league. And playing next to Mekhi Becton, I think that's only going to make him better when you solidify who's to his left and shoring up that right side of the line. Dan, I'm going to make a 2006 offensive line reference to you.
Should be fun.
Wait, because you kind of struck me a little bit when you said, people take this for granted. I would say, how long does it feel that the Chargers have been looking to solidify the right tackle position? Not even talking about left tackle, as important as that is. But how long does it feel that the Chargers have been trying to find steady production and solidify the right tackle position? Shane Olivier back in 2006 when the Chargers had a monster offensive line that was able to constantly protect and run the ball. Shane Olivier, Jeremy Clary. We've gone through the Trey Pipkins days. Good God. We thought we had it for a short period of time in Brian Bulaga. That didn't end up coming to fruition. It's been a long road to get that side of the line secure. And arguably you have the best pairing, and we'll talk about the other player here in a couple minutes. But that right side of the line now, you have so much confidence in it based off of what Joe Alt was able to do in his rookie year. So year 2 growth for Joe Alt, I am all for it.
Yeah, and again, I talk about being spoiled, right? Like the Chargers fan base saw what Rashawn Slater did as a rookie, right? And you go back to some of those numbers he had were just stupid. Only allowed 4 sacks and over 1,100 snaps. He had an 83.6 offensive grade with an 80.2 and 80.3 run block and pass blocking grade, respectively. That's what the bar is. So if you want to say that you're disappointed in Joe Alt for not being Rashawn Slater, like, sorry, he wasn't an all-pro as a rookie. Like, come on. But again, looking at the numbers side by side, Rashawn Slater, 4 sacks allowed. Joe Alt, 6. Joe Alt's grades, 75.9 total grade for offense. Rashawn Slater, 83.6. 70 and 78.1 for run blocking and pass blocking. Pretty darn good. Run blocking was a bit lower, but pass blocking was right there. 16 hurries, 26 pressures for Rashawn Slater as a rookie. 17 hurries, 24 pressures for Joe Alt. Don't sleep on Joe Alt. Do not sleep on Joe Alt. And in my opinion, it feels like Rashawn Slater was more polished than Joe Alt.
Also, remember, he was switching positions.
Joe Alt, I think, has far more of the athletic traits and intangibles that Rashawn Slater wishes he had to get to a higher ceiling. Can it happen? I'm not sure, but I'd bet on it. 100% I'd bet on it. Next one, Jake. Should we talk offensive line or defensive line? Just kidding. Let's talk running backs.
Yeah. Now, this definitely falls into the category as it relates to impact players year 1. And there's going to be there's going to be a handful of rookies that are actually going to be a part of this list, specifically as it relates to how this offense in Greg Roman 2.0 for Justin Herbert is going to work. And Dan, I don't think the excitement could be any bigger for Omarion Hampton coming into pair with Najee Harris as it relates to this running back stable. And, you know, people always talk about, name me a better upgrade, essentially, than what you had last year. There's a couple ways that you can look at this to say that the Chargers absolutely 100% upgraded their running back stable. Their running back stable is not only upgraded, it's deep. And when you add an element that Omarion Hampton brings to this game, Dan, I'm with Daniel Popper. I know that this is still probably going to be a 2-headed monster between Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris, but Omarion Hampton's going to be taking the bulk of the carries very, very quickly when we get into the regular season. And the elements that he is able to bring in the game, not just as what he can do with the ball in his hands, but how about in the pass game as well? How about his style, his elusiveness, his vision, what he can do? His career at North Carolina was well documented for what he was able to do in his final 2 seasons. He is a dynamic playmaker and a presence that you just really haven't felt with his size, speed, and trait combinations at the running back stable. You haven't had that in a long time. So this is the plan. This is the way, essentially, for Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman 2.0 with this running back stable that they want to implement.
And don't forget pass protection, too. Don't forget durability, too.
There it is.
And the way I kind of see this as like impact is how much more potential this Chargers coaching staff can get from him than what they got from the running back room last year, historically, just based off of odds, right? Like we're talking about a running back room last year that was plagued by injuries, oftentimes, not just last year, but in years past, that wasn't able to get the tough yards throughout the entire season, honestly. Now, blame the running back, blame the offensive line, blame the scheme, whatever. Net, they didn't do it. They weren't able to stay on the field. And there really wasn't much explosiveness outside of maybe like 4 or 5 dynamic J.K. Dobbins runs. Otherwise, it was kind of zeros and negative ones and 2s. You get a 40 in there, but it's kind of feast or famine.
Running the ball on first down for the Chargers was categorically, for the most part, not good, which put them in their second and long or third and long situations.
Well, it just wasn't good in general, considering who the offensive coordinator was and who the coach was. Both of those were much low. Like, both of those coaches, you'd expect to have much, 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 much better running games in totality than what they had last year.
I mean, it's also not fair when the only positive running lanes that you have are to the left side, when you can't get any holes open in the interior, you can't really get anything opening up to the right, and opposing defenses can just stack the box against you or become exotic and not really have to worry about the run and just tee off on the quarterback if they want to.
But I think what Omarion Hampton brings is what this Chargers coaching staff is built on. Like, it's what they rely on to be successful in years past. They're not just trying to makeshift their way through with cheap veteran options, right? Like, this is the style. They want to pound you into submission. They want to get those tough yards. They want to drown you in the fourth quarter. They want those 1, 2, 3, 4 yards a clip easy, right? They want that to be a given, not a variable. And that's what Omarion Hampton is, like, to a T. And say what you will about Najee Harris's shortcomings with speed and explosiveness. The guy is durable, the guy is dependable, and he'll get you 3.9 yards. Chargers fans would dream of a season long of 3.9 yards per clip for a full season. So, Omarion Hampton, and you can put Najee in there too, but I think Omarion Hampton for sure. If you see Omarion Hampton take off as a rookie, this Chargers team is sitting pretty. Because I think that's one of the things that plagued this team the most last year. And Daniel Popper talked about it previously. They just weren't able to depend on the run game enough. With two-headed monster like this, with Omarion Hampton possibly leading the charge, like, times are changing. Times are a-changing. Jake, next one on the list. My favorite, I think, arguably my favorite off-season acquisition last year.
Yeah, I don't think that was... I don't think it's even close. I don't think it's even close. Elijah Molden, let's not forget, was acquired after the draft, was acquired essentially right before regular season. And Dan was just talking about cheap veteran options. Let's not say he's cheap, but if you talk about what the Chargers gave up to acquire Elijah Molden last year, in retrospect, it looks like a steal. And yes, you signed him to a big contract in the offseason because, yes, he earned it. Jesse Minter was so, you could see how distraught he was when Elijah Molden went down at the end of the season. Because the way that Jesse Minter runs his defense, he loves the fact that he can have that flexibility in his zone coverage to rotate 3 safeties, whether it's between him, Derwin, or Alohi Gilman. Elijah Molden was such a versatile chess piece to the defensive backfield last year. And especially when you add Steve Klingscale into that conversation in terms of what he's having everybody be able to learn. Today, you're going to be learning nickel. Today, you're going to be learning, dime. Today, you're going to be playing safety. Tomorrow, you're going to be playing corner. When you could have a chess piece like Elijah Molden in that type of a versatile secondary, it adds so many more elements to what the backside of your defense can do. And he was arguably one of the best for the team last year. And if he didn't have as big of an impact as he did last year, I'm so stoked to see what he's going to do in 2025 with this safety room, with this cornerback group, with Jesse Minter 2.0. There's a lot of potential here for the amount of an impact that he can bring.
They got Elijah Molden for a late day 3 pick. And that late day 3 pick had banner years, So highest grades of his careers, total defense, run defense, tackling, and coverage. His entire career with Jesse Minter. And you talk about versatility. One of the reasons why Elijah Molden is so important is because it lets Derwin James be Derwin James. Elijah Molden at free safety allows Derwin James to be in the box, closer to the line of scrimmage, closer to the ball, making plays. Elijah Molden, by far, talk about versatility, by far played the most snaps of his entire career back as a free safety in 2024. Coming into this past season, the most snaps he played at free safety was 274. And that was 2023. 2024, more than doubled that to almost 600 snaps, 599.
Man.
How many box snaps did he have? Just 109. Guess who was there? A one Derwin James. That's what's missing in that playoff game. No Elijah Molden, the free safety, as your safety valve, literally, figuratively. Man, I'm so excited for him. And I was so pumped that they brought him back, and they brought him back early. And that contract was so well-deserved. And Jesse Minter's defense thrives. Steve Klingsale's defense thrives on versatile chess pieces. Not that they have to do everything every game, but that they can do everything, and they can be utilized game to game differently. So if there's an injury, if there's a schematic matchup that they're looking for, they can adjust accordingly. They're not stuck in a box. Elijah Molden is the opposite of that. He's a Swiss Army knife that Jesse Minter gets to use to cut a whole bunch of offenses up. And excited to see what he does in 2025. Speaking of cutting up, Tre Harris, we talked about since essentially midway through Quentin Johnston's rookie year of what this Chargers team has not had since Mike Williams went down that injury with the ACL 2 years ago. They seem to have it with Tre Harris. Now, again, let's wait and see. But what Tre Harris has done in college to make him a second-round pick and what he has hung his hat on and was the most productive of all college football wide receivers last year prior to injury was what this Chargers team arguably needed most, was outside dynamic jump ball presence, one-on-one man coverage beater, Tre Harris.
Dan, again, you go back to just the perfect fit. We've talked about it seemingly too much since Tre Harris was acquired by the Chargers, just to say how good of a fit this is. And yes, for someone coming into the league, and we have already named Omarion Hampton, this is Tre Harris. There's going to be another rookie on this list as well, because of the open competition, essentially, of what the rest of the room looks like for wide receivers. Yes, you brought back Mike Williams, but as far as your downfield X option contested catch, who's going to beat the coverage, Dan, you were kind of teasing it there for a second. Let's not forget, Tre Harris in general last year had the best yards per route run against man and zone coverage. If you almost kind of have to count your lucky stars from the standpoint that if he did not go down with an injury last year, he probably does not make it to the Chargers, because he was on a roll those first 6-7 weeks at Ole Miss before the injury took away that middle part of the season for him. And he probably doesn't last to the Chargers at 55 if he has a full season of a production like that. So it's kind of a double-edged sword to say, hey, yeah, the injury may have dropped in production and he may have lost some time during his final season at Ole Miss, but at the same time, I think in a backwards type of a way that assisted in the Chargers landing him at 55. But the perfect X option, I know a lot of people have talked about, is Tre Harris essentially going to replace Quentin Johnston. I don't look at it like that. I more so look at Tre Harris to replace what Joshua Palmer was intending to be, because we found out last year Quentin Johnston is not your X option. It's not his game. It's not what he's best at the NFL. But Tre Harris, in terms of what he's going to be able to give to the Chargers on the outside, something that DJ Chark couldn't give to you, something that Quentin Johnston or Joshua Palmer couldn't give to you in certain elements, Tre Harris is going to have every opportunity in his rookie year to give that to this offense.
I think this Chargers team will be looking forward to seeing is kind of those deep shots, right? The explosive shots. And you look at just this past season before his injury, I go back to his long receptions during games. week over week. You see longs of 38, 31, 56, 26, 36, 40. When's the last time you thought a Chargers wide receiver do that on the outside? The answer is probably Mike Williams. And that you saw the gel that those two had, Mike Williams and Justin Herbert. And Mike Williams is back. But Tre Harris is kind of like that heir apparent, in my opinion. So you've got a handful of these. Let's try to fly through these here as we wrap up this episode. Tarheed Still is another one. And a lot of people had no idea who Tarheed Still was when the Chargers drafted him. But we quickly found out. And then you see some of the impact plays he had at Maryland. You see some of the impact plays he had at training camp. And then you saw what he did during the season. I mean, the kid was locked down. Now, was he a bona fide CB1 rookie? No. Could you put on an island? No. But 5th round pick, Tarheeb Still balled out. And I think people are expecting even more from him this year. What will he be? Will he be relied upon as an outside corner? Is he going to be slot only? Will he kind of move all around? Kind of depends on what this other secondary players and pieces look like. Benjamin St. Juste, the Dante Jacksons, the Cam Harts, Dean Leonards, etc. But make no mistake about it. I think right now, Tarheeb Still probably has the highest floor of all of them. But imagine if that ceiling goes higher. Imagine if Tarheeb Still's better in 2025 than 2024. And I wouldn't be surprised.
And you feel like there's so much potential for it to be. Even again, rookie season, coming off of that and you have 4 interceptions as a rookie is great. Whether or not you want to call that breakout, that's totally your opinion. But for a 5th round rookie, and you could lump Cam Hart in the same category with Tarheeb Still in terms of expectations in year 2 for a guy like this. But Tarheeb Still, Dan, as you mentioned, has that outside-inside versatility. I think that he's strictly going to do what he does best as a slot corner. He was just so good in that role last year. And you hear his comments earlier this week from the first week of OTAs in terms of he was one of the few that came back when nobody was training and trained with Khalil Mack. So the mindset that he has got going into year 2, he has this competitive banter with Cam Hart that they like to try to one-up each other in terms of what they're able to do. Tarheeb still giving Cam Hart crap because he logged a 17-game season last year, or he's got more interceptions than him. And here we have this competitive battle. And, it's always nice when you can iron sharpens iron like that. But in terms of competitiveness, I don't think that it's bullish to say the Chargers may have gotten a huge steal with both of their corners in round 5 last year. And expectations are very, very high for Tarheeb Still going to year 2.
Yep. Next one, who honestly, one of my favorites, Oronde Gadsden II.
If not the favorite for Dan.
Probably. Make no mistake about it. Gives Justin Herbert and Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh, what they have not had, what they thought they were going to get with Hayden Hurst. But in my opinion, I think he's a more dynamic, explosive, pass-catching tight end that they have had in maybe since Hunter Henry. And even that, I think his ceiling is higher than Hunter Henry as a pure pass catcher. So Oronde Gadsden, I think, could impact this team a lot more than Chargers opponents are prepared for. Because Justin Herbert has not had a guy like this before. Like, Justin Herbert will rip apart teams to shreds if you give him an athletic, dependable pass catcher in the seams. Let Justin Herbert throw the middle. He will crush you. And give him someone that can do it, it's going to happen.
Yeah, for those keeping track at home, this is the 3rd rookie that is on this list. And the reasoning for these 3 specifically is because the opportunity is going to be there for starter snaps for all 3 of them. We talked about Omarion Hampton. We talked about Tre Harris. For Oronde Gadsden, it's no different in that tight end room. He's essentially has between him and Tyler Conklin to battle. And while I think that Tyler Conklin is a great additional pass catching option, I think you throw in the athleticism that Oronde Gadsden possesses along with his contested catch ability. There's no joke that he's going to have every opportunity to step up and potentially win the tight end 1 battle early throughout the season. And he could be a massive focal point for the Chargers in the passing game. You don't have to worry about his blocking. That is now going to be reserved for Tucker Fisk and Will Dissly. And they're going to get back to this original plan of what Greg Roman had installed for them in terms of how they wanted to utilize them. But with Oronde Gadsden, there is some dynamic playmaking ability. You can understand Dan's excitement on why he was stoked when he was selected in the 5th round pick when the Chargers traded up for him. There is a lot of excitement everywhere for Oronde Gadsden, and these are the reasons why. So, big-time expectations for 3 rookies stepping into their first NFL snap. It's no joke here, though, in terms of the rest of the roster in those specific positions, that the opportunity is huge for them to win starter snaps.
Yeah, the last 2, Jake, in the trenches, we got Taylor Tart and we've got Mekhi Becton. Taylor Tart's probably the one that has high expectations along with Jamar Caldwell, but Taylor Tart filling in the shoes along with Jamar Caldwell, full Poona Ford. But that defensive line, the Chargers team goes as that interior pressure goes. And the ability to take on double teams, do the dirty work, the unsung work. Taylor Tart has a lot to step up for. But if he is successful and he is what this Chargers team hopes for, this Chargers team is going to look good. Of course, Mekhi Becton. Now, you saw him full season last year, right? But is that the rule? Is that the exception? That's what we need to find out. If that is the rule and Mekhi Becton has gone over the injuries and has become that stable piece for the offense for the Chargers, him and Joe Alt are going to obliterate folks. And both will be massively important to this Chargers team.
Yeah, Dan, there's big expectations for Taylor Tart this season. Obviously, playing next to Poona Ford last year, we all have gone into how much of a loss on paper that is for the Chargers, and it was obvious in terms of how they felt about it, given the fact that they brought in Deshaun Hand, Naquan Jones in free agency. You go out and you draft Jamari Caldwell. You still have Justin Ebogbe on this roster that you drafted last year in the 4th round that we've even heard Coach Minter talking about that they have big expectations for. So for Taylor Tart, I mean, he's kind of the familiar man all of a sudden in that locker room along the defensive line as far as to say who's going to step up and be the leader. And for Taylor Tart, last year, had a career year in run defense, his second best year in pass rush. So it wasn't a bad year for him. But in terms of the weight that's going to need to be lifted in terms of this ever-changing defensive line room, because now he's essentially dealing with 2 new faces in free agents that are going to need to come in and get familiar with this system. You obviously have, as I had mentioned, Ebogbe and Caldwell that are coming in there as rookies. You still have Tito on this roster that will probably end up being on a different list when we really get to talk to him. But yeah, Dan, there's going to be some big expectations for Taylor Tart as well as this entire interior defense, because you know what you're going to have to go through. You know what you're going to have to generate to opposing offenses. Being able to stop the run, which at patches of the last year, the Chargers did have trouble in doing so. Getting after the quarterback, being able to generate that interior pass rush when the edges are not being able to create anything for you. Where are you going to get that from? And that's big expectations for Taylor Tart in this particular situation with this group. So yes, there is definitely potential for him to make a huge impact going into his second year with the Chargers in this particular system.
Yeah, and I think the part about Taylor Tart is, you know, I understand the loss of Poona Ford. Like he balled out for the Chargers last year. I mean, look at some of these metrics from PFF. I know it's not the Bible, but it's, you know, a metric to use. You know, he had over 650 snaps, 85.3 defensive grade, 80.3 run defensive grade, 25 pressures, 3 sacks, 8 hits, 14 hurries. Like that's pretty dang good. Again, 650 snaps. And just to look at Taylor Tart last year, had a little over half that. So 378 was last year. But let's compare, shall we? In probably a little less than 300 snaps less than him. Defensive grade for Taylor Tart, 78.9 versus 85.3. Both are in the green. Run defense grade for Taylor Tart was 80.3. Run defense for Poona Ford, 70.3. Excuse me, opposite. Poona Ford was 80.3. Taylor Tart was 70.3. You look at pressures. Taylor Tart, 79.3 grade. Poona Ford, 70. And then I think just looking at the overall totals here, again, 650 snaps for Poona Ford, 25 pressures total. Tyre Tart, 18 in 300 less snaps. Total hurries, 13 for Tyre Tart, 14 for Poona Ford. So if you extrapolate those out, if Tyre Tart could just be who Tyre Tart was last year, but with double the snaps, you're cooking. And what's to say he won't be? But imagine the impact of that. I mean, if we're looking at just sheer statistics, let's just say double what you saw from Tyre Tart last year. If you can give me, I don't know, let's get 23 hurries, 36 pressures, 2 sacks, 8 hits. Yeah, you're cooking. But this defense kind of needs it. Tyre Tart's a big component of this. But you're right, though. Like, I love the way that the depth of this team is to where, like, yeah, you'd like to see Tyre Tart get that. But at the same time, there's a lot of dudes in the interior. 2 of which new free agents. 1 of which you didn't even see last year in a Boygby, who's now a different person, apparently, 20 pounds heavier. And Jamar Cardwell, who was handpicked by this staff in this draft. A lot of pressure, I think, on Tyre Tart. But again, it's like opportunity, right? Like, competitors welcome. Tyre Tart can get a bag if he continues this out for the next few seasons.
Yeah, definitely.
Other side. I talked about Mekhi Becton a little bit here. Was there anything else you wanted to add to Mekhi Becton? Like, I get, like, Mekhi Becton, the impact, the possibility. We obviously will talk Lad McConkey because I think we all know how good he was, but how much better he could be. Like, imagine, right? But Mekhi Becton, like, is there any component of his game that we didn't? I mean, we talked about relieving pressure for Justin Herbert. We talked about run blocking, the road grading with him and Joe Alt. We talked about the improvement of him versus what we saw with Trey Pipkins or Jamal Sawyer, whatever you want. Zion Johnson, doesn't matter. But just like the physical presence of Mekhi Becton and what that brings from like a boosted morale almost, and just like a confidence point of view. It's like, okay, like we got some dudes now.
Yeah, you may be able to make a case that as of right now, and we've obviously talked about Bradley Bozeman, Zion Johnson, who's going to win out for that camp battle? Where is Zion Johnson going to end up? Is it going to be Andre James at center? Is it going to be Zion Johnson? Is he going to go back to left guard? There's so much question marks right now. But I think kind of in the same argument that I was talking about, like going back to, can you remember when that position was solidified?
I'm going to call you CeeLo Green.
I was talking about Shane Olivier at right tackle previously back in 2006. Remember Mike Goff at right guard? Again, it's another position that you try to think to yourself, like, when was the last time that position was solidified? Now, bringing in Mekhi Becton on a 2-year deal, there again may be no other position along the offensive line. This may even supersede Joe Alt. I mean, this is just how I feel about it. But I can't give any rankings to Zion Johnson or to Bradley Bozeman right now because we don't know where they're going to end up. But you could maybe say that there is no more important offensive lineman aside from Rashawn Slater than what Mekhi Becton is going to do for your line this year. You can make that argument, and I don't think that that's too far-fetched. There is a reason why we all collectively cheered as one late on that evening when Mekhi Becton was signed to the Chargers. We knew how much of an emphasis the need for building that offensive line back as a strength after the Houston playoff loss and watching it just get absolutely dismantled for an entire game. And for Mekhi Becton, credit to him for what he was able to do for the Philadelphia Eagles, go out and win a Super Bowl, play an entirety of the season. How do you replicate that? How do you replicate that? And I think for him coming into this particular situation, it's a great start for him to have Joe Alt playing to his right. That is a great start for him because he was surrounded by a terrific offensive line in Philadelphia, and having that right side shored up for him is a good start. Now, where do I think it's going to benefit? Hey, As I was talking about Omarion Hampton earlier, or when we were mentioning J.K. Dobbins, I would love to see some runs to the right. Give me some runs to the right. How much more does that open up your run game or just your playbook in general? Give me that. Pass protection in general. Mekhi Becton can do that. Now, I understand people who may have their clouds about it to say, well, can he stay healthy? He proved that he can stay healthy for a full season last year. Let's not go into the weeds and think that we're going to fall into a similar type of trap and start this off on a negative foot here. Just think about, as Dan said, Mekhi Becton is a presence, casts a shadow.
Was that 6'7", 360 something?
Mekhi Becton and Joe Alt standing next to one another. That is some serious power and athleticism on the right side of that line that could change the entire dynamic of both the run game and the pass game. Huge impact.
Dude, that's like, what? It's almost like 13 and a half feet between the two of them. Good Lord. Probably 700 pounds, roughly.
Mount Becton.
Dang. Between the two, like, that's wild. I tend to agree with Daniel Popper. I've seen him say this a few times, but, like, to me, the success of this offense can only go as high as Mekhi Becton will allow it. We saw what it looked like in the interior last year. And take away Mekhi Becton, it looks largely the same as last year. You can add Andre James to that mix. A year more with Zion Johnson or a year more with Bradley Bozeman or a healthier Justin Herbert at the beginning of the season. But, like, you're hoping for, like we talked about on the show last week, like, you want the warm towel, you want, like, the dark lights, you want the essential oils to pay off, right? That's what you're hoping for. Mekhi Becton's the Advil, the aspirin, the Tylenol. Like, he's just like, cool, fix the problem. That's a big one, man. It's a big one. And then I think the one that fixed most problems for this Chargers offense, other than Justin Herbert, and it's kind of laughable to think about what this offense would have looked like if they didn't select Ladd McConkey last year. But he was a one-man wrecking show almost all season. It just got better and better. And it's wild when you think that teams start to get more and more film on him. You think that they'd be able to stop him more and more. Oh, no, playoff games happen. 200 yards against him. 197, I think it was. He's the only guy who was essentially effective in the receiving corps this past year. And he was just a rookie. And the offensive line wasn't great. And they didn't have a run game. And there was no one else who could get open. And there was no tight ends who can catch the ball explosively. Like, you can go on and on and on and on. Like, you could argue that was probably the worst offensive supporting cast that Ladd McConkey's going to have in his career with Justin Herbert. And that's what he did. Imagine a glow-up second season for Ladd McConkey. Like, we're just scratching the surface with this guy, it feels.
Yeah, and this, I wanted to add in because maybe this is considered low-hanging fruit from a standpoint of, like, we've already seen the type of impact that Ladd McConkey can make. So it's like, oh, okay, old news. Only 82 catches, over 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns in his rookie season. Okay, yawn. We've seen it all. Is this like, what is this? This is more so from the standpoint of, I had seen some pieces talking about potential slumps for Ladd McConkey. And I thought about that for a second, and I thought, there's no way. I don't see any possibility here, specifically because of what Dan just said. You can't get any worse than what you did last year.
Yeah, define slump. If we're talking about, like, statistics,
look at that one of two ways. Yes, if that's how you're looking at it from a statistics standpoint, I would expect the ball to go to more people outside of Ladd McConkey as far as wide receivers go this year. But in turn, there's no way that defenses are going to be able to put him as the focal point and the only thing to cover when he was the only one beating man coverage last year.
He's the only one beating anything.
So as Dan said, the supporting cast, it's funny that you have to use this in the terms for a wide receiver. Normally you say supporting cast for a Justin Herbert and a quarterback, but for Ladd McConkey, get the man some help. Bring back Mike Williams. You add Tre Harris and KLS to this mix. You add Oronde Gadsden and your running game of Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris. This makes this offense now multiple. So statistically, is it going to replicate what he did last year? Maybe not. But if it means that there are more opportunities for Ladd McConkey to get open, which I think there will be, then I don't see any possibility with what the Chargers have done in the offseason that this could be a sophomore slump in terms of skill set or performance for Ladd McConkey.
Effectiveness, yes. And I think that's what I mean. Like, do I think that he will be a less effective player this year than last year? Absolutely not. I think he'll be more lethal and will be a better player in year 2 than year 1. Will that translate to more statistics for him personally? Maybe not, but I guarantee you the receiving core will be better and the offense will be more effective than it was last year. Guaranteed. Barring health, of course. But yeah, man. Arguably, Ladd McConkey may have been the biggest pleasant surprise for me last year. Not that I didn't think he was going to be good, but like, I have a hard time believing
Did you expect that? I think maybe
that's what I'm saying. Like, most pundits, most teams, most analysts, most fans. I mean, look where he's drafted. Hell, like, you didn't expect a 1,200-yard receiver year 1 from Ladd McConkey. And to see how effortless he made it look and how single, double, triple coverage didn't matter, like, that is what was like pleasantly surprising to me. I'm like, holy shit, like, what did they get out of this guy? And that was just as a rookie. This guy's barely scratched the surface. 1 year with Sanjay Law. Like, I don't know. That's what I mean. Like, Joe All, like, I kind of expected greatness from him because, like, that guy's pedigree, right? I mean, you could talk about Tarheed Still and Cam Hart, but in terms of just like the ceiling that he got to was just remarkable. And for that to just be a rookie season, it kind of reminds me of like what you saw with Rashawn Slater as a rookie, where the reason why he kind of fell a little in the draft that year was because of his size. And so I don't know if people thought he was going to be the best in the class. And, you know, I think those in Detroit might say something. But other than that, Rashawn Slater was an all-pro.
You know, I went back and earlier today before we did this pod, I went back and I watched the Chargers versus Cincinnati game from last season.
Oh, at the end of that
and
game.
I had forgotten, you know, yes, obviously he was key in that final drive for the Chargers, but you go back to earlier in that game, he had gotten dinged up in that game. If you can recall, there were some scary points where you thought, okay, whoops, he's injured, but he still remained in the game. And to see what he did in that final drive, or you even go to the Houston game, even in a loss, because he really was the only piece of offense that the Chargers could muster. 9 receptions for 197 yards and a touchdown. Even in a loss, that's going to be fantastic for the next time that he gets to have that opportunity. And the time after that, that's great for a rookie to come into that type of situation, even against that defense, even against a game that was seemingly done by the end of the third quarter. Ladd McConkey still went out and played, and he's just that type of an animal. So impact players, 100%. Maybe not the best, the largest jump statistically, but Ladd McConkey is key to this offense humming.
Yeah, and again, like, you talk about players, like big-time players playing big-time in big-time games. I mean, this guy is him, man. I mean, you go back again, go look at what he's done against the Raiders. Last week 18, 5 receptions, 95 yards. This is winning football stretch, right? You go up against the New England Patriots, 8 receptions, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. Go up against the Broncos, right? That defense, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 87 yards. You go up against, I mean, look at some of these games, ridiculous. Baltimore, 6 for 6, 83 yards. That Cincinnati game you mentioned, 6 receptions, 123. Cleveland's defense, which again, no joke, 5 for 64.
I noticed he didn't say that Kansas City game, that second one in particular, because he was injured, didn't get a chance to play in it.
Yep, week 14, not there. But hey, week 4 when he was there, 5 receptions, 67 yards, and a touchdown.
Still a hell of a season for a rookie wide receiver.
84.3 offensive grade for your rookie wide receiver. I mean, that's crazy. For including the playoffs, almost 1,400 yards and 8 touchdowns. What?
It's pretty good.
Playoffs, you go 9 for a $197 and a TD. What? Yeah. Imagine a glow up from him for year 2. So, look, you could talk about a lot of Chargers players, right? Hey, if they have a good season, like the Chargers team can look good. But we wanted to kind of isolate this on first or second year, either rookie, sophomore players and or veteran players that just came to the team. A couple outliers there, mainly Tuli Tuipulotu. But if these new players to the Chargers or to the league can have the impactful season that we would hope, this Chargers team's cooking. Like you think you can depend on Derwin, right? On Justin, on Rashawn Slater, on Khalil Mack, right? Dan Henley at this point, I think is almost like a foregone conclusion. Alohi Gilman, kind of same thing. Like you know what these guys are. Like they're proven, right? You know what Will Dissly is. In my opinion, I kind of know what Mike Williams is, really, as long as he stays healthy. But like it's some of these variables that like, man, like if they can hit on these and you can get that second year with Ben Herbert and company and the Austin trading program and OTAs and another gear with the system and all of that, buying into the TED Talks and everything that Jim Harbaugh has, like that's what gets you, me, Chargers fans excited, opponents terrified. But imagine this Chargers team, Jake, like being able to do what they want with the guys that they need. Like you need both of those things to be effective. And last year they tried doing what they want, but they didn't necessarily have the guys that they needed. Give them 2 years to find the guys needed and actually have some money this year. Like that's a kind of a scary prospect. And again, like I got 10 wins. That doesn't mean they're a terrible team. Like that's the schedule they have. Like that's a damn good season. 10 wins, playoff berth, going against like 8 playoff teams. Like, come on now. You feel pretty good and challenged going into the playoffs.
Yeah, like it's this list was cool to make. I wanted to kind of have a mixture of this rather than kind of the second year breakouts, widen the net a little bit more. If there's anybody that we missed that would fall into this criteria that you believe that should have been on here, by all means, put it in the comments. Give us your list. Would love to hear it. Outside of that, Dan, like we said at the top of the show, OTAs are underway. We're just waiting to get that much closer to training camp, that much closer to the Hall of Fame game, going up against the Lions, getting through those 4 preseason games, and getting us that much closer to the home opener in Brazil on September 5th.
Looking forward to touching grass, for sure.
Yes.
We're close. We're so close. We have some fun stuff in store for you Chargers fans. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe, especially the subscribe notifications piece, because there's some surprises coming your way. Jake, we went through a bunch here. Anything we want to tell the great friends before we jump on out of here?
I already said my piece, Dan. It's no secret that it should be football season. I'm secretly angry, even though I may have a calm exterior. I'm very pissed off about the fact that it is not July or August or September. Like you said, we need to touch grass, get the pads back on, and hit somebody.
Yep. It's about that time. For Jake, I'm Dan, Chargers Unleashed. We'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed.